And I realized that if I was willing to be vulnerable and if I was willing and courageous enough to share not only the story, but the emotions and the experience, how it felt in my body and how I chose to process it and move through it, that I could really create this ripple effect that could help other people to move through these similar emotions.
Before we dive in, let me tell you about the book that started a podcasting revolution, Make Every Podcast Want You. It is not just a bestseller, it is a 2-time gold medalist, baby. This book is your ultimate guide to landing dream podcast interviews, building authority authentically, and making your voice the one they remember. If you've got a message and a mission, this is your mic drop moment. Grab your copy today in the link below and step into the spotlight that you were born for. Welcome to the Communication Queens podcast for the visionary leaders, speakers, service providers, and podcasters who are looking to stand out sharing their story. I'm your host, Kimberly Spencer, former screenwriter turned master communications coach. On this podcast, I'll be coaching you on how to share your own transformation story so that you increase your visibility, influence, and income on podcast interviews. Let's get your voice heard.
Hello, gorgeous soul. How's it going?
Hello, how are you?
I'm really well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Phenomenal. I'm so excited to have a chat with you.
So I was listening to one of your podcast interviews earlier, one on the hormonal imbalance. I was like, this is brilliant. Perfect timing.
Awesome. So we're just going to dive into your story and like a bit about it. Where are you? Are you in a different location or?
No, this is a lovely Zoom background.
Stuff. It's a good one.
It's a good one, isn't it? Because obviously we're heading towards sunset here, so as obviously my background at this time of night starts to get really, I need lots
Dark.
of Christmas lights and all. Yeah, exactly. So I thought I'll find you a little bit tropical scene going on here with some beautiful tropics in the background. Definitely not UK based.
I was like, you are not in the UK.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Amazing. Okay, so we'll just dive in. And I always like to set the intention that this is going to serve exactly who needs to be served by this podcast. They're going to learn how to share their story in a way that allows them to transform, uplift, and continue the evolution of the planet in the best, highest, and greatest timeline. All right. Lorraine, what parts of your story were you hesitant to share when you first started your business?
So that's a really great question, because I would say that there have been multiple pieces of the story that along the way I've had hesitancy about, depending on where I've been in my journey. So I was always quite brave in sharing where I was at the very beginning of my journey, sharing the fact that I had struggled with general anxiety and depression and those kind of challenges. That kind of felt quite easy to share. The challenge has come as I've moved through my business and on my entrepreneurial journey over the last kind of 12 years, because I certainly experienced in my first iteration in business in network marketing, there certainly felt like you had to kind of put on a presence and you had to show up in a certain way. And there was this very obvious dissonance between the success that one could see me achieving in my business and what was going on behind the scenes in my life. So two pieces of my story that I've had a resistance in sharing. First and foremost was the breakdown of my marriage and kind of the fallout of that, kind of how it affected me in that moment and the knock-on effect it had in every area of my life. And the other piece that took me a really long time to share was about having been in a huge amount of debt. So at one point in my life, I was over £80,000 worth of debt. And there was so much shame and embarrassment wrapped up in that, and so much guilt as well, that I only started sharing that maybe a year and a half ago, and actually being really open and transparent about that piece of my journey.
Only 80,000? Oh, small kitten. I think most entrepreneurs understand the debt story, who have come out on the other side. It's when you're in it. Because I too had those moments of shame of do I share about this? I'm talking about, leveling up your business and manifesting more money. And meanwhile, there is a slowly dwindling pile of debt that is going down. But yes, the the hovering of that large amount. For me, it was 100,000 between my husband and I, and me 40,000 personally. And so the experience of that dwindling of the debt, what prompted you to start sharing about that? Was it just overcoming the emotion of shame, or was it actually you were already on the other side of it? Do you still have debt? What's your relationship with it now?
Yeah. So I would say that the main thing was the emotions. So what I quickly began to realize is that the energy that I had attached to the emotions, so the shame and the guilt and kind of that very, very, I would say quite toxic shame was still holding me back, even though I was on the other side of it, even though I'd cleared my debt, even though I owned half my house, like it was still at that point where I was like emotionally, I was still
Mm.
being held ransom to this shame and this guilt. And what I quickly realized is that it wasn't just me. And there would be a lot of people, especially when I was, having conversations with potential clients who would share the story with me in an intimate conversation. Like in a one-to-one environment, they'd be willing to share their real struggles, but that online, everybody was just sharing their wins. And it just felt like there's such a inauthenticity about the whole piece. And for me, it was about really being courageous enough to share all aspects of myself. And I'd heard, there's several times people had insinuated in the way they'd spoken to me that they put me on a pedestal and they saw me as like, oh, you're really successful, you have a really nice car, you have this, that, and the other. And I wanted to normalize sharing the vulnerable pieces, sharing the pieces that I had these emotional attachments to, because I wanted people to be able to really relate to me. And I think sometimes when we look at somebody online, we go, oh, that person looks really successful. They look like they've got their shit together. Like they look like they've got everything down. And we feel like we have to have it perfect. We have to have everything together. And I realized that if I was willing to be vulnerable and if I was willing and courageous enough to share not only the story, but the emotions and the experience, how it felt in my body and how I chose to process it and move through it, that I could really create this ripple effect that could help other people to move through these similar emotions in a way that was truly empowering for them.
I think that's the power of just owning your fullness of the story of because when we shame loves secrets, and when we are able to shine that light on it, it no longer has that power over us. There was a really successful podcaster that I knew who just crossed $1 million in her business, and her podcast producer was like, oh my gosh, we need to celebrate this. She's like, I can't. And she was like, what do you mean you can't? She's like, my audience already thinks I have achieved $1 million, so I can't say that I haven't achieved it yet. And so it's like the power of the perception. Like congruence is such a crucial principle in general with our own integrity and our soul alignment. But when it comes to our business and how we market ourselves, where do you feel, if any part, still that there's like a little piece that is lacking in complete congruence that you are currently writing, like that you are currently course correcting?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. So I would say this is really comes across in the visibility piece. So if I look at my growth, my transformation in this area in terms of how I show up in social media, right? I love to write a great piece of long form copy. Like that is my jam. That and going out in my mailing list is really awesome. I think there's a certain safety in that, right? There's safety in that. It can give me time to prepare and time to really channel what I want to come through and to shape it and to form it. And I think the one kind of incongruence or the bit that I'm really is literally right here waiting for me to lean into, right? Literally right now is the video piece for me because I know how impactful the conversations are and things like this, being able to have these kind of conversations and being able to lean into that consistently in my business and show the I would say it's definitely easier to share the stories that you've moved through a longer period of time ago, right?
Hmm.
So like with my debt, by the time I moved into this house, so where were we, 2021, I'd cleared my debt. to be able to talk about that in 2022 or 2023 was so much easier because I'd really, really moved through it. The piece that where the incongruence for me is right now is sharing what's happening in the moment, right? Being able to do that from a place of absolute personal power, but also to be able to share behind the scenes. And the reason I'm really passionate about leaning into this and leaning into my edge around this is that in conversations with my clients, one of the things that has been shared that they value the most from me is my behind the scenes, is me sharing the current course corrections, is me saying like, I did this, it didn't work, because I think when I do that in the moment, the one thing that I know people really respect me for is that like you really are walking the walk like right now you're doing all the things that you are sharing. They know that because I'm having those conversations, but I'm having those conversations in the safety of a one-to-one container, in the safety of my membership, in those spaces, and to be able to bring that in the moment vulnerability to a wider audience I know would be hugely impactful.
Yeah, I've seen the same thing with my audience consistently is and this is from even from way, way back in my first business as a Pilates instructor at 19 years old. My clients valued consistently, A, that I showed up, the professionalism of showing up, but B, that I was also honest. Like that I remember I had one Pilates class that I taught where I was like, y'all, I just ate half a lemon meringue pie and we're going to do an extra set of abs, letting y'all know. And the fact that like there is a imperfection that the pedestal gets to be stripped away. And I think that in so much of marketing, it's very easy to put people up on this pedestal. I've been up on the pedestal before and I'm like, please take me down. Please take me off of it. Because when you're on it, it's so easy to get knocked off. And while you can't control other people's perceptions and if they put you on a pedestal, I think the one way of managing the perception is through the in the moment authenticity of like, hey, I tried this, it didn't work, or hey, I'm in this struggle right now and welcome to life. Like, just because you get to a certain level of success doesn't mean that that disappears from you. If you're listening to this interview thinking, I want to do that, I want to be on more podcasts, I want to share my brilliance with the world, then I have got the service for you. It is called Podmatch. Think of it like Bumble, but for podcasting. This AI-powered platform matches you with the right podcast host so you can pitch less and get booked more. I've used it to land aligned interviews that amplified my voice and built my brand. It is literally one of the few services I recommend in my best-selling award-winning book, Make Every Podcast Want You. Sign up now at podmatch.com in the link below. There's a paradigm that I call the Jennifer Lawrence Anne Hathaway perfection paradigm. And it goes back to like 2013 when they both were going for the Academy, like not the same category of Academy Awards, but they both were going for like, they blew up on the scene. And the press just eviscerated Anne Hathaway. And her PR team, whether it was her team or her or however she was being framed, the perception around her was very polished and poised and like the Academy Award winning like woman. Where meanwhile Jennifer Lawrence was like flipping off the cameras and talking about eating McDonald's in her dress, and people loved Jennifer Lawrence, but there was a point where Anne Hathaway annoying was being Googled like 1.5 million times. And that's the power of like when you look at authenticity, people don't trust entirely something that is always looking perfect. There is a balance and a line is how do you toe the line between being positioned in the mentor role, in being in that mentor coaching space, and also saying, hey, I'm human too, and welcome to my life. I'm going to give you the behind the scenes that not everything is perfect, but it's pretty damn great because I've got a few things figured out. How do you navigate that line?
Yeah, so I think that's where I'm having the opportunity to play right now. It's always like I like to think of it as a game. It's about leaning into my edge and going, "Whoa, does that feel a bit uncomfortable to share? But does it truly feel like authentic to share? Is it really my truth that I'm speaking here, or am I saying something because I feel like I should say something or I must say something in a certain way?" And I think that's where I'm having the opportunity to explore now, because for such a long time, certainly from my conditioning from childhood, there were a lot of things that were quietened down, but you don't say these things this way, you don't say things that might upset people. That's where my people pleasing tendencies and the perfectionism came from, right? So certainly when I started to speak more of my truth in the online space, there were a lot of people that were upset by that, and a lot of people actually confronted me about that because they didn't like how I was being open about my life. And I think they were worried that it was reflecting badly on them, or I don't know what. And I think this was where I really had to learn to lean in and go, and in those moments, come back to myself, come back to my truth, come back to what I know is my truth, and say, what is the purpose in sharing this? Am I sharing this because I want to empower and inspire others? Am I sharing this because I feel it's going to add value to other people's lives? It's going to help people to navigate the challenges that I have navigated, in which case I should do it anyway, right? Versus, oh, okay, actually, am I going to share this because it's coming from a place of ego, and I'm sharing it because I think I should, or I must, or whatever there, and being able to tune into yourself in such a way that you can recognize that and then move accordingly, even if it's freaking uncomfortable.
Walk me through your process for tuning in to decipher whether it is fully aligned and of service or whether it is of the ego, of the musts and the shoulds and the have tos.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, alignment is that first and foremost, I'm an emotional authority in human design. So I know that sometimes when I write a piece of content, or I'm gonna put something out into the world, I sometimes need to write it and then give myself a couple of days. Yeah, because often when we write things, I might be writing something in the moment that's really, I'm really in that zone there. I mean, give myself a couple of days. If it feels a little bit edgy and I'm like, oh, I'm not quite sure here, give myself a couple of days. I can come back and check on it. But the quickest way for me to see whether it's really coming from that place of alignment or whether it's coming from ego is how I feel about it. So I often talk about the fact that our feelings are feedback. And if it feels like really expansive, and for me, that's a very physical, visceral feeling in my chest. It can feel scary, but it has a very open hearted, loving feeling to the share. Then I can go, okay, even this is a bit scary, but it feels like it coming from my heart center. It's a physical feeling in my body versus ego. I notice much further down. It's in the pit of my stomach. I can check in. I can go, okay, that's really interesting. What's ego playing here? And I notice it in terms of the feelings, because the feelings tend to be more of focus on what can I get. Yeah, it's more on a focus on what can I gain and rather than what I can give. And that's a great thing. It's like, how am I giving in this versus what do I feel I can gain? But also from that feeling perspective, if there's anything on a lower vibration, or if there's any kind of fear attachment to it, what I would say is I'll just take it to self-inquiry and I will peel back the layers of fear and I will figure out whereabouts it's coming from. Like, is the fear coming from sharing this part of me and from a visibility perspective in terms of fearing rejection or abandonment, or is it that actually at the core of the reason for sharing this message is not truly aligned with my soul purpose and my values? So yeah, everything I can run past my values for life. So does it make me feel empowered? Does it make me feel inspired? Does it make me feel courageous? Does it make me feel connected? Right. If I know that it is all of these things, that it's aligned with my core values. If it on any of those, it's like, then there's something there for me to look at and to reevaluate before I move forward with something.
I love the process of filtering it through your values. And I think that's one of the processes that I work with in my Crown Yourself coaching company, really of understanding what your values are. Because so often many people think they have certain values, but their life doesn't actually show that that is actually true. Like, especially like when I hear someone's like, oh, I totally value money. And I'm like, but you're not making any. Like, you can't say that you don't value something if you don't have it in your life.
The same with freedom.
Same
Like
with
saying, I
freedom.
really value freedom. And then you look at the way they've structured their life and they've literally created a business in a way that is completely to the 9 to 5 because that's their conditioning. And I'm like, that's not freedom. Like,
Yeah.
freedom is me getting up at, 5:30 this morning to do my morning rituals and then going, it's 10 o'clock. I actually can take a nap now at 10 o'clock in the morning if I want to, because I know that I've got other things. My day is set up in a way that I can create the space and the freedom in my life. And I think you're so right. So often there can be this core misalignment. And I think, in terms of how I run my life and how I run my business, I run things by my values. I run them by, like, my passions. Is this something that I'm truly, absolutely passionate about and inspired about and really lit up by? And then is it a priority for me? Like, if it's not in alignment with my values, my passions and priorities, it's not for me. And you have to be willing to let go of those things. And you're right, so often with values, I think it's because it's about how people choose their values. I remember when I first really started to work on this values piece, and I can't remember the book. I'd love to share the book with you that I used, but it was really about exploring the values as how do you want to feel on a day-to-day basis? So rather than saying this is a value, it's about understanding that a value is connected to how you want to feel. So rather than saying, for me, as I say, it's like I want to feel empowered. I want to empower. It's a true feeling. And so often what people do is they think their values, they literally download an internet list of like 100 values and go, which ones of these do I think are most important to me? And they might tick money because on the surface level, they're like, yeah, I really love money. But actually, they're ticking money because they believe that's something that they should have because of the conditioning saying that's the thing that they should have on their list versus what is their truth and their true values and their alignment.
That it's so true with the ticking of the list and the difference between operating from the emotional realm versus like the mental, logical realm. And I'm like, you have to get it into your body first. Like values are embodied. They're not just like something that you put up on a board or in your office. So like, here's our core values. It's like they have to be lived through action. If your actions are not actually living freedom or empowerment, then you're not actually those aren't actually your values. And I think it's okay if they're not. It's just being honest with yourself and having that truthful conversation of, okay, well, maybe you want them to be. So what needs to actually shift in your life to actually then create that?
Yes. And what needs to shift in you? Because what
Hmm.
I realized is that when I realized that one of my core values was courage, like to be courageous, to feel courageous, I was like, there are so many ways in my life I am not being courageous, where I'm not leaning in. And I got the opportunity in that moment to be radically honest with myself and say, where in my life am I not living in alignment with my values? And what do I get to change to move that through that? And sometimes that is something we have to change we get to change in the physical world. We get to take a different action. But for me, that was right. In order to be courageous, what do I need to change in here? And that was getting really freaking good at managing like regulating my nervous system so that I could take those courageous, bold actions and still feel safe enough to take them. So those changes, when I started to look at the values and go, right, I want to live in alignment with these, I really, I got the opportunity to go, what internal shifts do I get to make, as well as what actions do I get to take in the 3D world?
I think courage is such a beautiful topic because it's one of the things that we talk about with our communication queen clients of like making sure that the stories that you're sharing, courage is a motivating emotion. It's actually the one that tips the scale into the higher vibration emotions of love and joy and enlightenment. So, anger can activate and pride can certainly accelerate because people are like, ooh, that, when you're operating from the emotion of pride, people are attracted to some of the things that come with pride, the validation and all of that. But courage specifically is this tipping point with stories and with sharing anything, whether it's on a podcast interview or in your messaging or in your copy or in an email, it tips the scale and actually creates momentum where it's an activating emotion that positively moves people forward. Where did you back down when you were in your business from taking courageous action that you look back in hindsight that you wish you'd taken faster?
Oh my goodness, so many things. Like, if we were to wind back, like literally, like rewind the clock back to my first iteration in business, and there were, I would say, the biggest piece for me when it came to courage was having the courage to listen to my inner truth and my intuition. And the reason I say that is that what I did was I followed external strategy, external validation, external, all of the stuff on the outside that was saying, this is how you build a business. This is how it's done. This is how, like, and literally I was followed everything to a T. And then I remember, one of the stories I share quite a lot is the biggest shift for me came about 3 years into my first business, because I essentially had a hobby business, right? Like one of those ones that pays you no money. And I had one for 3 years, and I was saying, I have a business, but this business was literally like making me £200 a month. So it wasn't really a business. And I remember, like, for me in that moment in time, the shift came from being courageous enough to trust myself and to listen to those internal nudges of where to tweak things, where to lean in, where to lean out. And that, I would say, has been kind of an ever evolving piece for me over the last decade, right? Because it was that first moment of like, I'm going to be courageous enough to go all in on myself, to really listen to those intuitive nudges, and then to move when they hit, rather than be like, think about something for 3 months before I actually move on it. And each time I've followed those nudges and had the courage, and sometimes it takes huge courage at so many points in life and business. One of the biggest pieces for me with courage was I built a successful business in network marketing, built to the top 3% of my company. And from the outside, you could look at it and be like, this is amazing. Your business is going amazing. And I remember that at that point in my life, I was looking back in 2020, I lost my dad to pancreatic cancer. And that was a huge turning point for me, because what I hadn't realized until several months after he'd gone was that I'd been holding on to this business that was no longer aligned, because I'd proven in that business that I could be successful. I felt an obligation. I felt a sense of responsibility to the business that I built and to the people who were around me at that time. And I took so much courage to walk away from something that was no longer aligned. And it was the same with my marriage. When we got to the point where it was like, this is definitely over, it's never easy to make those decisions, but trusting yourself enough in those moments that you know that no matter what happens, you're going to be okay. You are a survivor. You are resilient. You are capable. You are powerful. And the universe is here to support you. There are people who are going to be here to support you. And taking those courageous, bold actions, I will never forget, getting in the car with my 2 kids going, I don't know where I'm going to go. Like literally, I sofa surfed for 3 months with 2 children under 4. And I just remember it took such huge courage to listen to my intuition, to listen to that inner guidance system, that this is the right thing to do, because it would have been easier not to, right? It would be easier to stay in the situation, to stay in the safe place there. But it was so far out of alignment with who I'd become and how I wanted to live my life, that I would have always felt like I'd let myself down, and that I'd let my kids down if I'd stayed in the situation that I was in. So I would say, when it comes to courage, the big piece is listening to myself and trusting myself enough to move when the intuition has hit.
Mm. That's been such a learning lesson for me as well. Trusting those little move now, like do it, like that's, and everything, it all, I am always caught. I am always supported. Like I remember when I had the opportunity to do my TED Talk, and my fear and my ego was like, hell no, you only have 3 weeks to prepare a freaking TED Talk. And my intuition was like, you know you got this. Like you know that, like, you've been preparing for this moment for, you only have 3 weeks technically, but you've been preparing for this moment for 2 years. Like, you're good, right? And I was like, yeah, I actually do. And it was the same when we manifested our house. Like, we just moved and went like all in on it. And it was just, whew, like we just had that trusting and that knowingness and took action. And I think that that's the scariest part, is when you get those things that don't make conscious sense. And they don't make sense because things are comfortable and it's nice. And like, why leave a business that's making you good money, or why leave a marriage? It's okay. Like those conscious minded things. But meanwhile, your intuition is the one that's like, hey, you will be caught, you will be supported. If you're going to quantum leap beyond what you think is even possible, just trust us. Or you can just continue on the little 2x path versus the 10x quantum leap. So it really is like the quantum leaps are actually, I find, easier, not necessarily in terms of like the choice, but actually like once a decision is done, then everything just kind of realigns in your favor versus the 2x linear path, which is like, oh, we'll just keep kind of going along as we're going. And that ability to just lean in and take that bold, decisive action is so essential. What bold, decisive action are you taking now as you step into this next level of you?
I love it. So I've been in this realm of taking bold, courageous actions, just like even over the last few weeks. There have been lots of things that I've known since to backtrack. When I discovered that I was a manifestor and human design, so this is the end of 2022, I suddenly felt like everything made a bit more sense to me. This idea that I'm here to impact, I'm here to really go out and initiate the bold moves. And I've noticed this in my commitment to the actions that I take now versus what I would do before. So even things like, recently I hosted a summit. And the safe thing to do, the strategy I was taught is, write people an email or say, hey, I would love you to be a speaker on my summit. But my intuition was like, hey, you need to speak to these people. You need the people you really want to interview. You need to voice note them, even if you've never met them before. Even if you look at someone, you're like, right, well, they've got a multi-million-dollar business. You're just going to literally drop them a voice note and have a conversation with them. And these are the kind of when I talk in my business about helping people to make those courageous as fuck like moves, because those are the moves that you could take the easy option. Like I could hide behind an email so freaking easily, or I could go, oh my God, I really want to speak to that person. I really want this opportunity. I really want to speak at that gig. I really want to. And it's in those moments that you have to get so far out of your comfort zone and just pick up the phone and just drop that voice note and I think for me, that is where I've been getting the opportunity to play with my courage is I could do this the easy way, but it's not how I'm meant to do it. I'm here to speak things into existence, to make those moves, to speak to people in high places and be offered incredible opportunities, to be persistent. And I've recently had the opportunity to do a bit of coaching within another coach's organization, and that's coming up for me really soon. And that's I was pretty persistent. I was like, I'm really interested in this. Like, I would love nothing more than to be able to do this with you and for you. And that I am a persistent person. I will keep going, and it takes. That's I think when we talk about what am I leaning into now, what is the courage thing now? Is right in every moment. Go, does this thing really scare me? And does it feel so freaking aligned? Then I'm going to move and I'm going to move and I'm going to move. And so it's almost like I can't say to you, oh, it's this one thing or it's this one thing. What I'm doing now versus what I was doing a year ago is I move on every single thing. As soon as I get the intuitive hit, I've dropped that voice note to that person. As soon as I get the intuitive hit that I want to be involved with this, I move. And that's where you talk about quantum leaps and those. And for me, quantum leaps are the result of those incremental, those 1% decisions you make, those 1% actions that you take. You look at them singularly, and they might not seem like a big deal, but the compound effect of consistently leaning in and moving is what garners the results that you're aspiring to create, right?
Yeah, I remember the moment, like there were several moments where I was like, I need to get up and go to the bathroom at a conference. And I would get up and go to the bathroom and I would come out and the speaker who I wanted to speak to, like when I got to meet Tom Bilyeu, like was right there. And I'd be like,
Mhm.
and then the courageous thing for me, I was like, because I was the shy girl who didn't talk to anyone in kindergarten and like stalked her best friend, like followed her around like a creepy stalker, didn't say a word because I was so scared to talk to people. And I was like, okay, my courageous move, like, hello, inner child, like, we're going to nurture you and I'm going to talk to the cool person in the room. And it's those bold moves like that create this that create massive momentum. And that's why it's not, you don't have to be busying yourself with an like 9 to 5 for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. It's those simple, like if you do 3 really deeply courageous actions on that podcast, send a pitch to that like major podcast where you're like, I don't know, let's see, what's the worst that could happen? They say no. Okay, great. Then maybe I just need to get better as a speaker. Then I just need to build my platform bigger. Okay, then I'll submit to them again the next time my intuition is like, hey, to submit to them again. Great, no problem. And then you trust that intuitive process of like really deeply leaning into those few courageous actions that create quantum leap in results.
That's a freaking
Lorraine, I have loved this conversation and how much courage you have and who you are and who you're expanding into being. How can we find you? How can we work with you? Share your genius.
bless you. So the best ways to connect with me are via Facebook. Come find me on my personal profile, which is L Davies VP, or come and find me on Instagram, which is I am Lorraine Davies. So you should be able to find me pretty easily on that one. So come find me on social media. I also have a website, which is www.youdeservetoflourish.com. You can find me there as well. And my favorite way to play with people is in in an intimate space. So I usually work with people out 1-to-1, either over 6 months, 9 months. I have a couple of clients over the 12-month term. And really, where we play is in deep self-leadership and the energetics piece regarding self-mastery. So usually the awesome people who come to play in my world have got all the business strategy down, right? They know what they need to be doing. It's not that they know all this, they know all this stuff, but it's really about the fine tuning and the tweaking. So how can we do the self-inquiry pieces to help you open into more receivership of the income and the impact that you want to create? How can we do that kind of that self-inquiry piece to expand into more freedom and more fun, experience more playfulness? Like that's one of the top priorities when I work with clients is like, how can we have more freaking fun in this whole journey? And so, for people who are female entrepreneurs who are really heart driven and purpose driven, to come play with me is really have your business strategy down. But if you are looking to expand into everything that you are here to be, if you're ready to overcome those limits that you know are self-imposed, that you know that you like, I'm made for more, that feeling of I'm made for more, then that's where we get to play in the self-inquiry and the personal energetics and expand into your next level you. So your expansion era.
Amazing. Go over to youdeservetoflourish.com. Have a conversation at the very least with Lorraine. This has been an extraordinary conversation on courage and expansion and really leaning into that next level of visibility, which does take heaps of courage. So with that, as always, your story has the power to save at least one life. So go out there, stand out, and be heard. Queen, if what you just heard stirred something in you, if you are imagining how your voice, your story, your genius could be positioned with the same clarity and magnetism, then it's time. Book your visibility consultation with me today. I will guide you personally through a 7-step Communication Queen strategy, personalized connections to podcasts that need your voice, and an implementation plan that makes you unignorable. But this isn't for everyone. It's for the visionary who is ready to be seen. If that is you, click the link in the description to book your visibility consultation now. Thank you so much for listening. If you love this episode, subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with your friends. For more tips on guest podcasting, storytelling, and communication strategies, follow us on social media at Communication Queens Agency and visit us at communicationqueens.com. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. And in the meantime, remember, your story has the power to save one life. Let your story and your voice be heard.